I see this time of year as a time of both thanksgiving and giving, as an appropriate time to talk about the Endowment Fund and what it means to the church. Because our church consists not only of this physical structure of this building, the minister and staff, but also the faith and foresight of those who started and grew the congregation, and who had the foresight to see the future of UUCSV. On behalf of the congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm Suzanne Leroux, your associate for today's service. We wish to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Shawnee, Massawomic, Manahoic, and Monacan tribes who lived in this area prior to the arrival of the European settlers, who then took the land for their own. We gather with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you're joining us today for the first time, or you've been a member or a friend for many years, we're glad you're here. Whatever faiths you've known, whatever your background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. Now, as Mark Lohr comes forward to light the chalice, let's say together here and online the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And I invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends we covenant one with another. Give, although your heart may never to a grateful tear respond. Deeds of kindness bless forever, reaching for the world beyond. Now,
Thank you, Linda. It's very, very appropriate for today. To use a quote attributed to Warren Buffett, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. For many years, UUCSV has been able to offer grants through the Endowment Fund to support the church because earlier members encouraged donations and grew the fund in a responsible manner. As we, as members, continue to donate to and manage the Endowment Fund, we're helping the tree to grow and produce more for the current and future members and friends of this community. An endowment is not only about today's needs, it's about faith in tomorrow. And just as the UUA symbol for our church has a light, a beacon, our endowment is a financial symbol of a beacon shining into the future. So today, we talk not only about the endowment as a financial tool, but as a spiritual commitment to the future of our church. Our generosity enables us to benefit from the tree, to sit under its shade and harvest what it can produce. So first, I'd like to explain what an endowment is in general to promote a common understanding. First of all, it's a legal structure. Most states have regulations that guide endowments, and endowments organizations with endowments typically have rules about how to use and manage the fund. An endowment builds donations into a fund that's invested to generate income to support long-term stability and vitality. A healthy endowment fund can attract people to an organization because it reflects that financial stability. Endowment funds are usually not for short-term needs, but for projects that serve as building blocks for the strength of an organization. For example, a university might have an endowment for important research. Museums might have an endowment for new acquisitions. An endowment fund is typically a separate fund under an organization's financial structure. And the foundation of an endowment fund is called the corpus. And no, we're not referring to dead bodies, though it sounds like it. The corpus is the sum total of the original donations to an endowment, and the corpus of any endowment fund must be protected. Why? Because by definition, it's a fund designed to be a financial tool for growth, and donors contribute to it with this specific understanding and intention. So now let me talk a little bit about our UUCSV Endowment Fund. The purpose of the Endowment Fund, as stated in the charter and the operating procedures for the Endowment Fund, is to further the principles, mission, covenants, and programs of this church. It's intended to be used for projects, items, and activities that are not included in the church operating budget. And this is done through an annual grant process based on the financial growth of the fund, and I'll talk in more detail about that later. As with most organizations, our endowment fund is a separate account under the auspices of the church, not to be commingled with the operating fund or any other church fund. It operates according to Virginia code, and you can see the code up there. It is actually interesting reading when you go into it. And the code does speak to protecting the corpus and the intention of those gifts given to the fund. But the endowment fund is much more than that. We have an endowment fund to also help prepare for the future. For example, it's been used to support participation at the UUA General Assembly, which deals with the vision for the future of the UU churches, to purchase books for the RE Library, to improve the safety of the church, to give us visibility in the community, to attract congregants. It helps to demonstrate financial stability, to attract members and staff, to be used possibly as a collateral for a loan from a financial institution should the congregation decide to expand the church building or make some other type of improvement. Or it could actually provide a loan to the operating budget of the church, paid back with interest, to the fund rather than a bank, so that interest money stays within the church. So for example, in 2015, the church board requested to borrow $15,000 from the fund to cover an operating fund shortfall, which in the end, it did not actually have to use. And when the church needed a new heating and cooling system, and a bank loan seemed to be pretty expensive, the church borrowed $30,000 from the endowment fund on a 7-year loan and made the final repayment actually just last year in 2024. And it's to serve as a financial resource as a last resort in extreme circumstances or emergencies. The purpose of the Endowment Fund Committee, of which I am a member, is to provide for the faithful and responsible administration of the Endowment Fund, to grow it by encouraging donations and by responsibly investing the fund, and to ensure that the fund is wisely used. So how did the fund start? Who planted that first seed and when? And how has our tree grown? According to our documentation, Joe Shad, who was finance chair at the time, and Naomi Pigeon, a founding member, originally set up the fund sometime around 1994 when Joe donated $300 to start the fund. And other than Joe's contribution, our history of individual donations starts in about 2009. We're missing some years there for specific individual donations, although we know how much was donated each year. We just haven't yet found those records. We might still. In the early years, the board recognized the need to have the fund be separated from other funds, and thus they appointed an endowment committee to oversee it and to grow it. But through the years, many people in this congregation have been connected to the endowment through making donations, making pledges through estate planning, serving on the Endowment Fund committee, or working on an Endowment Fund grant, or benefiting from the grant. And even in the early years, there was hope and vision for the future. Meeting minutes show that a process for offering grants was developed even before there were enough funds to release or withdraw. For several years, the Endowment Fund grew slowly with many small donations from multiple people. After 13 years, by 2007, the fund had $11,600 plus in it. But by 2011, through some energetic donor recruitment efforts, the fund had more than doubled to $27,000 plus. Then, the first large donation came from the estate of Doug Adams, who had been actively involved in the church for many, many years, including the early years of the endowment. His estate donation of $100,000 was received in 2011. So, being very excited by this large donation, the endowment committee, eager to start offering grants, decided to do so in the next year, even though it originally thought they wanted to wait until we had $300,000 in that account. So in 2013, the first grants, totaling $3,345, were offered in honor of Doug Adams, and the grants were named the Doug Adams Grants. So this was a great way to honor the vision and generosity of Doug Adams. On the other hand, it gave some people the idea that the fund was based only on his gift, which failed to recognize the important donations of others. And in fact, in December of 2011, just after that Adams grant was received, the fund had a total of $129,000. So, like a tree, the fund grew annually, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly. Every donation and the investments helped. Between 2009 and 2024, donations of all sizes were made, ranging from $20 to $13,000. And then in 2022 and 2023, two large anonymous donations were made, one of $33,000 and one of $94,000. Those helped to significantly boost the fund, obviously. And in 2024, the generous and largest donation of $130,000 from the estate of Richard Fenton significantly increased the fund. So it's really just in the most recent years, 2022 and until now, that the fund has substantially grown as a result of all the donations and as a result also of favorable market gains. So to more accurately reflect all donors and all amounts of donations, the grants are now referred to as the UUCSV Endowment Fund grants instead of the Doug Adams grants, rather than naming just that one generous donor. So now I'd like to let you know how the fund is managed. And I mentioned before that it's managed by the Endowment Fund Committee. It's the church board who appoint the Endowment Fund Committee every year, annually, to provide for the responsible and faithful administration of the fund, to carry out day-to-day functions, such as working with the financial institution where the funds are invested, issuing calls for grants, working with grantees, managing expenditures and reimbursements, making financial and status reports to the board monthly, and encouraging donations to the fund. The committee also updates working documents such as the operating procedures, the charter, and forms that help us provide consistency to the grant process and management and accountability. Although the church board does not have direct control over the endowment fund and cannot use it for operating expenses, the board does have final oversight and fiduciary and legal responsibility for the fund. All decisions, all charters, all operating guidelines, and grant recommendations must be approved by the board. Now, during the years from about 2009 to 2014, the Endowment Fund Committee during those years worked very actively to grow the fund by promoting and encouraging congregants to leave a legacy. Some of you may have seen a plaque out in the narthex called the Legacy Society. The committee wrote letters to members, encouraging them to think of the church and endowment fund in their estate planning process. They included articles in the church newsletters about members who planned to leave funds to the church or the endowment, and even had one of our congregants, a lawyer, conduct a seminar on how to do so. And they created the Legacy Society to recognize those people. They also created a concept called the Celebration of Life to encourage congregants to make a donation of any size. Those are those $20, $10, $20, $50 donations to celebrate a milestone in their lives, such as a birthday, a promotion, the birth of a child or grandchild, or other heartfelt event, or as a memorial to someone who's passed away, or to honor someone's last wish to donate to the fund. Now, the money is invested to ensure its growth, and we use the United Bank brokerage firm to manage our fund, with an emphasis on socially responsible investments. The Endowment Committee reviews the brokerage fund reports each time we meet, which is at least quarterly and lately has been monthly, working on various things. So at this time of Thanksgiving, I want to say let's all be thankful for all of the donations made to the Endowment Fund, as well as any of the church funds operating, or there's a third kind of fund called a restricted fund, such as the piano fund. And at this time of year of giving, let it be known that an individual can donate money at any time to the church and or the endowment fund as beneficiaries of the estate, including insurance policies or other investments, or just with those small donations. This is how we grow the tree so that it can be productive. And just so you know, because the church is a nonprofit organization, those donations are tax deductible. So how do we use this fund? What can we harvest from the tree and the generous donations? Over the years, the Endowment Fund Committee, with board approval, has established the process for offering the grants. First, we determine how much can be withdrawn from the fund. And this is a formula based on the total amount of money donated. What's that? The corpus, which is then adjusted for inflation. We call this the minimum fund amount. And then a maximum of 5% of this amount may be made available for grants. 5% sounds like a small number. But just for comparison, the UUA uses a 4% maximum from withdrawals from their fund. Typically, the organizations will use anywhere between 3 and 7% withdrawal. The committee also takes into account current and anticipated market conditions each year. So just in this past year, in 2024, we were a little bit conservative with the amount because we didn't know how the presidential election might affect the market. If fund values have fallen below the corpus or the minimum fund amount, or market conditions are not favorable, there's not enough money to offer grants. And that happened in 2016 and 2017 when the world economy experienced a financial crisis. But what's important to keep in mind is that the original donations, the corpus, must be maintained in that fund. Now, in the giving tree, which truly is a beautiful story about love and caring, the tree offers the boy all it has until just a small stump is left. It has nothing left to give. But we definitely want a different story for the endowment fund. We want a tree that we feed and is thriving and can produce something for us each year. And that's why donations to the fund and enabling the corpus to grow are so important. And we do have a thriving tree. As of our last financial reports, October 31st this year, The corpus of the fund was approximately $447,000. With investment income, that fund has a total of approximately $649,000. And that sounds like an extraordinary amount of money, at least did to me when I first got on the committee, and it is. But some endowment funds for the churches in the New England area have $1 million to $3 million endowment funds. So it's continuing to adhere to the standards that we set for endowment funds that enables this growth. To use our tree metaphor, this is the watering and fertilization of the tree so that we can harvest from it. Each January, the Endowment Fund Committee uses a formula that I explain and considers as market conditions to determine the amount we can distribute. We make a recommendation to the board to withdraw that a calculated amount, and the board must approve the recommendation or alter it. For this coming year, 2026, we anticipate being able to offer $20,000 to $26,000 in grants. And that's getting to be a more substantial amount because that fund has grown. On this slide, you can see the timeline and the process. A call for grants is issued by the Endowment Committee in January, and that's coming up quickly, and that's why this homily is timely. Any congregant, staff, or committee of the church may submit a grant application to the Endowment Committee anytime between January and March. In April, the committee reviews all of the requests, giving them equal consideration, and determines if they fit the grant criteria. Projects that meet the criteria are considered, and blue insert in your order of service provides some information about the endowment as well as the grant criteria and the timeline. So anything, of course, that could be part of the operating budget is generally not considered, although sometimes that can be a very fine line. Some people have asked why we don't accept grants on a rolling basis. And the reason for that is, here's an example. Let's say, for example, we were to be able to issue $10,000, and early on in the process, someone submits a grant, say, for $8,000 for a project that seems very worthy, and the committee agrees with it, and the board agrees with it, and passes it, and that $8,000 is gone. Well, that only leaves $2,000 left for the rest of the year. And other projects that are very worthy, that are more expensive, might come in, but they would have to be denied. So that's why we have a fixed timeline so that all applications, grant applications, can get equal consideration. So the applications that the committee approves are then passed to the board for final approval or denial. And the board is made aware of ones that the committee denies as well. The board's final decision of approved grants is announced at the annual members meeting in June. And after that, in July, the committee starts to work with each grantee through successful completion of the project. And projects are expected to be completed by the end of December. Additionally, grantees are required to submit final reports on the project for accurate record keeping and accountability. This past year, in 2025, the Endowment Fund was able to offer $16,000 in grants. But the grants submitted and approved by the board totaled only $9,188 for 10 grants, all of which were very important, useful grants for the congregation. For example, we have additional AEDs available in the church. So 6 of those have been completed, and the 4 others will be completed soon. So as I said, we expect to be able to offer $20,000 to $26,000 in this coming year. So before I move forward, I want to mention some of the beneficial projects that have been funded through endowment grants. Special music for special events, new member books, building a library of books for the RE program, leadership training, a float created to be used in local parades to give us more visibility, technology upgrades to offer the webcast services such as we see today, installed during COVID and very important to the church to continue to operate during that time, improving sanctuary lighting, security cameras, outside key boxes for first responders use so they don't have to break down the doors if they need to get in here, rebinding the new membership book, and contributions to hurricane relief efforts for a community a few years ago. So again, because we're coming upon the start of the grant process, I encourage everyone and all committees to be thinking about how you might use grant money to benefit the congregation or further your mission. And to submit a grant in January after the committee puts up its 2026 grant application, because we do review the application process annual to make sure that it works for us. So in closing, we are thankful for the foresight of church leaders, for everyone who has ever donated to the endowment and other church funds, for all past and present endowment committee members, and for all members of the congregation. Each of us has the opportunity to support our symbolic tree by participating in the Endowment Fund in multiple ways, making a donation at any time, however small or large, including the Endowment Fund in estate planning. And by the way, on the back of your blue sheet is the donation form. So if you want to use it, feel free. Have faith that the Endowment Committee will always protect the corpus of the fund, but let's also benefit from what we can harvest from our symbolic tree and use the grant monies to further the mission of the church, including community outreach. So currently, the Endowment Fund Committee members are Suzanne LaRoe, Alice Irvin, Gary Fillmore, and me. And feel free to ask us questions at any time. Additionally, we have a handout in the narthex that explains the Endowment Fund and Committee. So I close with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, adapted from Mahatma Gandhi. "A society grows great when people plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in, but those in the future will." So, thank you.
And in speaking about generosity, I think that we should have a roaring applause for the amount of work that Leah has put into this amazing presentation. Well, it was brilliant, and the amount of time and energy is only a particle of what's done in the committee. And I can speak to this because I'm just new to the committee, so I'm like with my mouth, really? And the work that Alice, who's not here today, Alice Irvin, is just brilliant. So when I spoke to the fellow at United Investments, he said, "I just want to let you know that I work with many, many different endowments, and there is not another endowment that's managed the way this one is, with care and just pretty amazing." And we're looking for some new volunteers, so if you feel inclined to be part of this generous team, let us know. One purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and action. We will now gratefully receive an offering to sustain this self-supporting church and its ministries within and beyond our walls. If you are watching online, we hope you will consider making an offering through our webpage, UUCSV.org. If you're visiting, please feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence is our gift. Love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. Whatever form we are, able or disabled, rich or poor, it's not how much we do, but how much we love, how much love we put into the doing. A lifelong sharing of love with others. That's from Mother Teresa. Please remain seated for a brief postlude by Sharon. Now, as Mark Lohr comes forward to extinguish this chalice, let's all say together with the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts till we meet again. The ours a religion which, like the sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. Farewell.
All right, we have a treat of a book and two treats of children. One of her favorites, she says. Oh, good. And Robert has it up on the screen. So this is a book called The Giving Tree. Does anybody know this book? You read it 1,000,000 times to your children? Yes. No? Yes. Okay. So I think this is a really important book, both for adults and for children. So this is I'm glad to be reading it. Okay, so it's called The Giving Tree. And what do you think a tree can give? What? Apples. What do you think? It's right in the book. You'll see. Okay, so it's up on the screens. I'm just going to be able to look at it here. So. Yeah, people are at home. Okay, so once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. And I bet she loved a little girl as well. What do you think? Yeah, yeah. Okay. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves, like collecting her leaves, like in the fall now we pick up the leaves. So he would pick up the leaves and he would make them into a crown on his head. That's a fun idea, isn't it? And he would play king of the forest. He would pretend he was the king. Or in the case of the girl, she will be the queen, or maybe the princess. He would climb up her trunk, the big part of the tree, and swing from her branches. And guess what he would eat? What do you think? Apples, of course. He would eat the apples. And they would play hide and go seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade, lie down at the foot of the tree and take a little nap. And the boy loved the tree. And how do we know he loved the tree? Because what was he doing? Yeah, and he gave the tree a big hug. He loved the tree very much, and that made the tree very happy. But time went by, and what happened to the boy? He got older and bigger, and the tree was often alone. He didn't come to visit the tree so often. Then one day, and look at the boy here. Then one day the boy came to the tree, and the tree said, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat my apples and play in my shade and be happy." And the boy said, "I am too big to climb and play. I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I only have leaves and apples. But here's an idea. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money, and then you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time again. And the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back. And the tree shook with joy. And she said, "Come, boy, climb my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." He's getting older, isn't he? "I am too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm. I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house? I have no house, said the tree. The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy. And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house. Now, do you think you could build a house out of the branches? You might have to take the leaves off. But then, you could. And the tree was happy, of course. Always happy if the boy comes. But now he has a house, but now the boy stayed away for a long, long time. And when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." "Oh, I am too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Well, cut down my trunk, the big trunk of the tree. Cut down the trunk and you can make a boat," said the tree. "Then you will sail away and you will be happy." So the boy cut down the trunk and made a boat and sailed away. Look at all the things that the tree gave to that boy. Wow. And the tree was happy. But Gina said, "No, not really." And after a long time, the boy came back again. "Now look what happened." "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you." "My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I'm too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I'm too tired to climb," said the boy. "I'm sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump." That's called a stump of the tree. "I am sorry." Well, the boy thought, said, "I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I'm very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. "Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down. Sit down and rest." And the boy did. And the tree was happy. And what do you think? Do you think the boy was happy too? Yes, he was an older man and he had a place to sit. So that was a tree that just kept on giving. Thank you all.
You want to join me as we sing the children out to their class?
Thank you. I got it.
Now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit